Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Islamic Awakening. I'm your host, Raza Ghazim. Unity of Muslims, wishful thinking or a realistic expectation? Is it possible for a group of people that span a globe to try and be united? On top of that, within the Muslim community, there are different points of view on the interpretation of the Islamic faith. The positions have been entrenched over centuries. So is the concept of unity asking Muslims to unite when the religious positions vary? Is this even possible? Is the Quranic principle of uniting impossible to achieve, or have we misunderstood what uniting means? Can Muslims unite despite the differences? To address these issues, we have our esteemed guest, Professor Tariq Ramadan. Welcome to the program. I wanted to start off by asking you, a group of people who span the entire globe, coming from different nationalities, different ethnicities, different groups and so on. How is it possible for such a diverse group of people to unite or to work towards that?
I think that's exactly the way we have to put the question, is maybe to reassess our understanding of unity. Because the way you are putting it, this is the reality of our destiny as human beings. We come from the same source, and this is what we think, that we are all coming from a male and a female. So there is one origin, but then there are nations and civilizations, and there is history and people. Unity doesn't mean to come with an idealized way of dealing with the source. Is to manage the diversity of our cultures and our origins and our belongings. And I would say here that this is what we have to understand. When you set an organization just to bring the people together, you are not talking about where do they come from, is what we are going to do together. So the unity is much more to think about the goals and the mission than about the source and the origin. And I would say here that we have to manage this diversity, which is everywhere in the creation, everywhere in our living together or living within a society. When we are, there is a community, there is this question of unity. So it's not an Islamic question, by the way, it's a human question to start with.
That's interesting, but I want to focus in on the idea of the Islamic faith and the Muslim community, because there are so many different interpretations of Islam that are out there, variations. And you've got that diversity which you talked about very eloquently, but then how can we actually talk about uniting when the interpretations of the actual faith itself are so varied?
Look, this is the starting point, and we are misled very often when we talk about this. We know that what we are asked or what is expected from us as believers is to be united. This is what it's coming from the Quran. We are brothers and sisters in Islam, and we need to be united when it comes to our faith. And this is what is the meaning of the spiritual community, al-Ummah, which is united. Now, our understanding should be quite clear. When we come back to the sources, what we call the scriptural sources, Al-Quran was Sunnah, and we all agree on, there are prophetic traditions. There is the Quran and the prophetic traditions. By the very fact that we understand that Islam is a religion of the book, as we have other religions of the book, the religion of the book means that we are dealing with texts, and texts are sent for our intellect, our rationality. The very moment you say this, one text, many interpretations. The starting point of diversity and the starting point of the unity of the text and the diversity of the interpretations. In between, you have the responsibility of human beings. And this is the starting point of our understanding. Unity doesn't mean uniformity. Unity means managing this diversity and understanding that as long as you are dealing with the scriptural sources, and for example from an Islamic viewpoint, you can have on the principles, on what are the pillars of Islam, Shia, Sunni, and all the schools of law that we have within. We agree on the usul, on the fundamentals. We disagree on the secondary issues. And because of this, we are saying that there are many interpretations. In our history, if you take the Sunni and the Shia together, we had more than 30 schools of law. And no one said to the other one, you are outside Islam and you are part of our unity. We are within this unity of our faith, the spiritual community, but we accept the diversity of interpretations when it comes to the scriptural sources. And this is also something which is very important, because diversity is coming from the way you read the text, but from where you read the text. If you are in Europe, or you are in Iran, or you are in Africa, or you are in Asia, the text is the same, but you are not the same. You have interpretations. And as cultures are so important in Islam, we are integrating cultures within even the reading of the scriptural sources. So I think that this is where Muslims should be very, very cautious not to come with an idea or an ideal of unity, which is uniformity. We should all think the same. There was unity around the Prophet, peace be upon him, but not uniformity. They were not all the same.
One of the things that you said was this idea that you have these different interpretations of the legal application of the laws of Islam, and how when you've got these different laws and people working to those different laws, how can that practically work? Because when you move from one jurisdiction to another, you will have people who might have different follow the different jurisdiction. So in a practical level, how can that unity be achieved in terms of that jurisprudence?
By the way, it's not only a diversity with the law and the legal framework and jurisprudence, because jurisprudence is moving. It's even with the way we are understanding the book. We have a very long tradition of thinkers and scholars dealing with al-Aqidah, which is the creed. So even with the fundamental, the pillars, we don't, about, for example, the notion of you being free and me being free. How do you understand this? He knows everything and you are free, so how come? Because what we are going to do tomorrow, he knows it already. God knows what you are going to. So where is your freedom? This was huge interpretation. So we have fundamental question, and then the legal framework when the scholars were reading the text. So what they understand from the text is specific, and sometimes it has to do with their own some of the legal understandings in history were coming from scholars dealing with the surrounding society. And this is also very important, that they were reading them in a very specific period of time. And then they had to implement this in a very specific context. So we have here something which is the principles could be understood differently, implemented differently. So what does it mean? It means that if we are serious about unity, we should accept that there is diversity. An accepted diversity helping us to get the unity. And at the end, I will challenge the Muslims by saying, don't put unity at the beginning. Put unity as a goal, as a mission. And what does it mean? It means that if I come with somebody, we may disagree on many Islamic issues. For example, you are coming from a tradition, I'm coming from others, we disagree. But if we think not about the way we interpret the text, but what do we want to achieve? Do you want to achieve peace with God? Yes. Do you want to achieve justice? Yes. Do you want to achieve equality? So let us talk about the goals that are unifying us instead of our interpretations that are dividing us if we don't know how to manage them. So we are between goals that are common goals and a diversity of interpretations. And between the goals that are common and this diversity of interpretations, we can come with a sense of unity. But there is something which is essential in all our discussion. Don't make unity a superficial way of dealing with your brothers and sisters. Because in the name of unity, now we have too many Muslims who are scared to speak, scared to question, scared to have a free, open mind about issues. And that's not the right way. This unity based on shut up, don't talk, don't ask. Because if you ask, it means that your faith is low. That's not going to work, because this is not the state of affairs today with our world. It could be okay in the culture, in the closed society, but the world is interconnected, and we need to get this, that our unity is based on critical thinking. Don't be scared of questioning and diversity of opinions, as long as you are not saying about Islam something which is against the fundamentals, because we have limits here.
One of the things that you said is, to some extent, it's quite key, that it's the interpretations that are dividing, and it's about managing that diversity, that different interpretation, and what you can actually do. But those are the very things that seem to be the real challenge of how you manage it. Because there's one thing of being able to say, for you here, that, for example, this is divisive, this is our goal, idea is nice, but then the actual practicality of seeing how that's going to play itself out when you've got people becoming very heated on the interpretations, how do we move forward with regards to those practical problems?
Yes, I think we can't deal with unity if we rely on ignorance. And we can't deal with unity if we deal with arrogance. We are between ignorance and arrogance. Arrogance is the dogmatic mind. What I see is right. My interpretation is the only right interpretation. And ignorance is, I'm following somebody and I think that what I know is the only truth because I am ignoring all the other interpretations. Between arrogance and ignorance, what we need is education. Education is something which is al-ikhtilaf, as we call it in Arabic, is many interpretations. You know, when I was studying Islam, I went through 63 points of disagreement between scholars. And when you start entering into this, wow, it's huge. That you understand that you have to be very humble, that this is one answer, this is another answer, and all the scholars coming with very, very strong arguments. And no one saying to the other, you are a kafir, you are no longer a Muslim. No, we are part of this unity, but managing our diversity out of knowledge. So we need to get more knowledge about how, you know, when you come back to your tradition, the Islamic tradition, in the Shia and the Sunni tradition, you understand that there were lots of different opinions and things that are to be studied by us, so we need this. And then something also which we have to reconcile ourselves with in the Islamic tradition. In the beginning, even between the companions, if you look at the companions around the Prophet, peace be upon him, they were arguing, and they were free to argue. He was not coming to say, you listen. Shura baynahum, meaning they consult each other. So shura means what? You have an opinion, express your opinion. So we need to reconcile this, because a unity which is imposed as by a dictator is not. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was dealing with the unity of the community by managing a shura, managing a space when you can discuss in the name of something which is common to all of us. We want to achieve something which is pleasing God and spreading justice in the world. So we need to come much more about our common goals than our diversity of interpretations. And as I said, I'm not saying that everything is right. I'm saying there are rules, there are principles, there are limits, there are things that we have to respect. And then we have to deal with, the first condition is education. The second is not to confuse unity and uniformity. It's based about a critical thinking. It's about interpretation. And then also to understand that, in fact, willing it or not, if God had willed for us to all think the same and a unity based on the same thinking, He wouldn't have sent a book. The book is by definition open for interpretation. So this is where even you and me, because we have different level of understanding, different, people are not clever the same way, so they understand. I sat with some of the scholars, you listen to them and say, how come they were able to extract from the book such a deep understanding? It's coming from their minds, and it's very often the problem is not in the book, it's in the minds, it's with the readers. So I think here that we need to be very, very clear on this, that Muslims should be more educated and accept something, which is also important, if I may add this point, which is intra-community dialogue. Because intra-community dialogue means that what is missing today is a dialogue. And we had it in history. It's not enough today between Shia and Sunni. Come together, talk to one another, have this critical, positive thinking together, because this is the way to create unity based on an accepted diversity.
And even when we talk about the Shia Sunni, we're kind of simplifying it into a binary thing, whereas in fact the whole situation is far more complex, and there's a whole spectrum of things.
Very often I have more problem as a Sunni with my Sunni brothers and sisters. Even when we talk about the Shia and the Shia, I know that they had also problems, and it has to do with our aqidah, it has to do with the legal framework, it has to do with our understanding. So it's not to be polarized. Even within we have this discussion, and we need this discussion within our traditions and among the traditions as what Islam is, a unity of a diversity of views. That's the point.
And within this idea of educating, because education is central to this, when you want that discussion to actually take place, you know, because one of the things you said very strongly, that it's important to actually have discussions, not in terms of ignorance or arrogance, but in terms of being educated. Where do those discussions, what space do they need to lie in? Do they need to lie in the space of the people who are the elites, the intellectual elites, the scholars? Or do they need to lie at the lay level? You know, because the unity, does that happen at the elite, you know, the intellectual elite level, the scholarly level, or does it happen at the grassroots level?
Yeah, I would say it's not mutually exclusive. I think we need it everywhere. As soon as you have a mind and you have questions, a space of dialogue and discussion should be open. So in our schools, in our mosques, with the ordinary Muslims, be careful. As much as Islam is a religion of the book, Islam is a religion celebrating community, al-jama'a, community, and it means that there is a value. It's not, we are not, you know, the scholars that we have should understand that they are not to be served, they have to serve the community. So what we are talking about education and discussion, I would like today in our mosques, in our schools, everywhere to have space where you say, okay, we want a unity, but this unity is based on you being convinced, you asking questions and understanding the goal, the meaning of things. We should be united as to understanding the meaning, not as to impose formalism and rules. It's the meaning of things and the goals that are uniting us, and this is what we have to do. So it should be everywhere. Now we need also to ask our intellectuals to stop thinking on their own and to be challenged and to have this, these discussions within. And unfortunately, it's not happening enough among intellectuals, and then also with scholars. Shuyukh, Maulana, Mullah, and Ayatollah, come. Have this discussion, open this discussion, and stop. You know, we keep on repeating Islam, it's the Ummah and everything, and we don't know how to manage this. We are not dealing with knowledge, we are not dealing with education, and we are not dealing with critical thinking, and we are idealizing this unity. Once again, if you come to the times of the Prophet, peace be upon him, the way he was dealing with different tempers, different characters, different thinkings and thoughts, he was open to this.
But one of the things, one of the challenges that is, you know, you talked about going into mosques and opening up this dialogue and so on and so forth. Often people are preaching this to the converted, to the dialogue is in a very narrow sense, because the people who are following a particular system, whatever that spectrum of happens to be. How do you break down those barriers of a mosque being ascribed to a particular group or whatever? Because unless you have that at a practical level,
you're right.
Also, how is that going to work?
Yeah, you are right, and you know, I have been challenging Muslims around the world in all my talk. You know, they are sitting down and they are very happy, say, oh, that's very nice thoughts, and carry on speaking to us like this. But at the end, it's a personal commitment in your daily life. What are you doing? How are you dealing with your brothers and sisters in Islam first, just to get a sense of what they think? the way they think about it. And the more you listen, the better you understand your own thoughts, and you challenge even your thinking. And this is where you are, this sense of curiosity. Have this sense of curiosity. It's coming from the dialogue. And I would say to the people, stop going always to the same mosque with the same people and talking in the same mosque with the same people about the unity of the community. Well, you are not living, you are not experiencing it. It's just a dream, and you are not doing so you are not doing it, and you end up having, being very open-minded in a very narrow circle. That's not going to work.
That's interesting. And one of the things is, what about the context of the usage of language? So the fact that we, even in this dialogue that we've just had, we've used the terms Shia and Sunni and so on. Are we constraining that dialogue from taking place by the language and how we are using the language to say this is our definition, rather than projecting the concept of, when we're talking about unity, the Islamic Ummah? What's your feeling on that?
I think you are right. Once again, we should start somewhere. So we are starting with the ordinary understanding or the common understanding of some of the concepts. But you are right, we should not stop at this by saying, all the Sunni, all the Shia. That's not true, that's not real. We have to, then we can say, deconstruct, try to understand better what does it mean. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by Sunni? Because within the Sunni family or the Shia family, there are trends. And there is this diversity as well. So I think that as we are moving on, we come with a better understanding. And how are we going to get a better understanding of words? The better understanding even of the concept of unity? By being challenged, by being dealing with it in our daily life. So I would say to all the people who are watching us is your commitment. You have to do this. You have to, and more importantly, you have also to do it within your family and with other people. But not only this, because there is a very strong verse in the Quran telling us, be careful. Humanity. You are brothers and sisters in humanity, and humanity is one. What is the humanity? This unity within humanity. And this is what خَلَقْنَاكُمْ يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ, people, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ ذَكَرٍ وَأُنْثَى, we create you from a male and a female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا, and we made you tribes and nations. Why? What is the final goal of this? لِتَعَارَفُوا, to know one another. To knowledge is the key. What we were discussing is discussed. So this is also something which is important. We should not come with a narrow understanding. We Muslims, we talk to one another and we teach the people. No, we listen, we understand, because we have to learn from people of other faiths. We have to learn, it's in the Quran. So this diversity and the unity of humanity is also for us to be to show some curiosity about what is coming from Judaism, from Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, thoughts, philosophies, spiritualities, nations, tribes. I think that this is the starting point of us being open to the world and saying there is one God, one humanity, diversity, and our humanity and our unity is to manage this diversity.
Thank you for that very interesting insights. To sum up, one of the things that we have touched on is this idea of rejecting the arrogance that sometimes people come with, that our way is the only way, and also rejecting the ignorance where we're not actually taking on board, and the idea of being educated and having an educated discussion and educated debate, and remembering that we start off, as Professor Tariq Ramadan has said, on the idea of being, from a humanity. We created from this Islamic idea of from one male and one female, and taking forward that idea of unity, and making sure that within that concept of unity, not just within Muslims but within humanity, that we within the Muslim framework, within the Islamic framework, we don't think of unity as uniformity, but we recognize the diversity that exists within the Muslim Ummah, and recognize that unity can be achieved despite the diversity that we have. I would like to thank Professor Tariq Ramadan, and of course all of you at home for watching. I hope you can join us again on another edition of Islamic Awakening.